What is up, everybody? Back with another list here, and this one's going to be kind of interesting. I'm going to give you my favorite modern albums by 80s glam metal bands. So this one is actually going to be the first ever top 6 in the history of this channel. I'm not going to lie to you guys. While there are like several albums, I've got 6 of them here that I really like. I'd be lying if I said there's like 10 that I think are really great, but these 6 I think are all great from these classic bands that I think need to be listened to more, deserve some more attention. But of course, I just went to the M3 Rock Festival, in the mood for this type of music at the moment, the 80s glam metal type stuff. But just going to jump straight into it here with my number 6, which is Infestation by Rat. Got them on the shirt here. This is actually my 3rd video I've recorded today in this shirt. But awesome stuff. Came out in 2010, and this was kind of like a comeback album for them. It's their most recent album to date. It was the first in 11 years at this point since their 1999 self-titled album. And with this, you know, there's 3/5 of the classic lineup. You got Warren DeMartini on guitar, who is one of my all-time favorites. Love his tone. But of course, there is no Robin Crosby at this point. He passed away, I think, about 8 years before this album came out, so RIP to him. But they've got Carlos Cavazo on guitar, who's great, most well-known for being in Quiet Riot back in the day. And a guy named Robbie Crane does the bass, so no Juan Crocier on this album, but those 2 guys that I just said are not classic, but Warren DeMartini, Bobby Blotzer on the drums, who's great, and of course Stephen Pearcy on vocals, the frontman. Got a cool, kind of unique voice, but really good album here. It's heavy. I've heard some people say that, I think this was an interview with Warren or Steven, can't remember which one, but they said that this album, they thought it would have fit in well between Invasion of Your Privacy and Dancing Undercover, so they went for the classic feel, definitely executed it, really good stuff. Looking at these songs, Eat Me Up Alive is amazing, love that opening riff. A Little Too Much is great, As Good As It Gets, Garden of Eden, and Take a Big Bite are the standout songs I wrote down, but, you know, whole album top to bottom is pretty dang good, so that is here on the list. Number 5, I'm going to go with kind of an underrated, maybe surprising pick for some people, but I'm going to go with Public Enemies by the band Pretty Boy Floyd. Now, I did just see them at M3. I've got sitting around like right here, I've got their classic album, Leather Boys with Electric Toys. Great stuff, classic, cool album cover, but this album here, you know, if you think that that first album is a little bit like cheesy, not heavy enough, this album got a little heavier, but it still maintains that classic sound, which I don't think is cheesy at all personally. But good, catchy stuff. The vocals from Steve Summers are fantastic. Christy Majors on guitar. He's the classic guy from the original album, but really good guitar playing, great riffs, great solos, great melodies. The vocals from Steve still sound exactly like they did back in the day. Really good stuff. Good, catchy, like, sing-along choruses that, you know, they're just, like, get stuck in your head. I was listening to this yesterday, and a couple of these songs just stuck in my head since then. Looking at them, We Can't Bring Back Yesterday, that's got an amazing chorus. We Got the Power, Run For Your Life is great as well, and the opening song after the little intro track is called Feel the Heat. Got a cool, like, machine gun, because Pretty Boy Floyd's, like, a famous gangster or whatever. There's a machine gun firing, and then breaks in, got a nice double bass kick, good drumming. It's heavier than the stuff you would remember from their 80s material, but really good album that I think is quite solid, so go give it a listen. My number 4, I'm going to go with Karma by Winger. Love these guys. As I've said before, they are top-tier musicians all the way around. This album, with the exception of Paul Taylor, is the classic lineup. You got Rod Morgenstein on the drums, who's fantastic. Kip Winger, obviously, great songwriter, singer, bass player. Reb Beach, who is a freaking monster on the guitar. And John Roth plays on this album. He's not a classic guy, but the rest of the guys are classic. But John and Reb, just amazing duo. One of my favorites, honestly. I've seen them twice live now, and they were amazing both times. I'm looking at these songs. Pull Me Under is probably my favorite Winger song. Much heavier than if you only know stuff from their first 2 albums. You would not be expecting this. This is more reminiscent of, like, classic Judas Priest type stuff. Heavy riff, amazing guitar parts. The melodies are fantastic, as I said. Kip is just a master songwriter, so everything flows perfectly on this album. But Stone Cold Killer is great. Come a Little Closer, another favorite. But top to bottom, really awesome stuff. Number 3, I'm going to go with Lightning Strikes Again by Dawson. Love Dawson, one of my favorite bands of all time. Don's voice at this point still sounds fantastic. Nice, smooth, melodic. Always been one of my favorite voices. And this album, absolutely feels like it could fit in with some of their later 80s material. Definitely, I'd say Back for the Attack, songs from this album, feel like they were just plucked right out of that era. So if you want classic sounding Dawson, this is exactly that. Really awesome stuff. John Levin on guitar is fantastic. I think Barry Sparks does the bass playing, who is great, and the drumming is done by Mick Brown, who's the classic original drummer. But looking at these songs, I would probably go with Standing on the Outside is my favorite. The opening song, fantastic again. Sounds exactly like it could be from Back for the Attack. Point of No Return is awesome. Judgment Day, This Fire, some of the standouts. John Levin, love his tone. The solos, the riffs are all freaking top notch. So really good album. My number 2, I'm going to go with Hollywood Forever by LA Guns from 2012. So with this one, it has Phil Lewis on vocals, who I've said multiple times, when it comes to LA Guns, I want Phil Lewis on vocals. He's the guy. Phil's not there. I don't really care for it, but love his voice. This album, great classic feel. Feels like one of their late 80s albums. Looking at these songs, the title track is fantastic. You Better Not Love Me is awesome. Eel Pie, super heavy, great riff. Burn, Dirty Black Night, a lot of great stuff on here. This does have Steve Riley on the drums, classic guy. Stacy Blades is the guy playing guitar on here, so no Tracy Guns, but once again, don't really care as long as Phil is there fronting the band. Awesome album that I dig quite a bit, so it's there at number 2 for me. And taking the number 1 spot has got to be Rolling with the Punches by Vayne. Love this band. Always like kind of a darker feel to their music than a lot of the other glam metal bands. Just always had that atmosphere for me. Especially their debut album's great. This one, just Davey Vayne on vocals. I've always thought he had a really cool, unique voice. Love a lot of these songs. Looking at them, the title track is awesome. Deliver the Passion, which was originally on their demo. They redid it here, and it is just amazing song. Long Gone, Inside Out, Show Your Love, which is that one, and the redone version of Deliver the Passion are my favorites on here. Top to bottom, though, this was one of my top 10 albums of 2017. I think, yeah, this one and the Pretty Boy Floyd album are the most recent on here. For this concept, I was going the last 15 years is when it had to come out. So, yeah, those are my top 6. And there were other good ones, of course, by a couple of bands on this list. Didn't really feel like doing duplicates on here, but another album by Vayne, Enough Rope from 2011 is fantastic. Broken Bones by Dawson is pretty good from 2012. Some other ones that I thought were pretty good were releases from Tora Tora, Babylon AD, and Saints of Los Angeles by Motley Crue is pretty good, but didn't really feel like including it on the list. It's not quite up there. But those 6 I listed are all very good, well worth listening to, highly recommend. But yeah, awesome stuff there, and that does wrap up the list. If you want to give me your top 5, top 10 albums by 80s glam metal bands, I would like to, top 5 modern albums by them, I'd like to know. I'd like to see them. Do you agree with the list? I think there's not a huge pool of albums here to pick from, but I think those 6 I listed are just amazing, so go listen to them. And until next time, thank you for watching.